Hello guys, this is Dark Fox Sage 2 and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto Fell in Love with Konan Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. Don't know what's going on with me. I feel like I can't take it much more. Nagato. First person view. It was another day for me. The second day of my permanent stay in Konoha. This was so confusing. Of all of the people I could have ended up being around, what was I thinking for allowing my guard to fall so low? This village despises my very existence and yet I am living in it. I knew this would happen if I ever let it get this far. That's why I didn't join Naruto in his original offer in the first place. But, somehow I am here. It was almost as if fate was actually playing with us all like puppets on strings. Was there a purpose? I got up and started a slow pace through the forest, not really thinking where I was going. I just wanted to be alone. Just being around Konoha sent shivers down my spine. The tears kept coming and coming, but it was hopeless to even try to stop them. Every attempt to seize and desist these forsaken tears only let them flow even more. I'm crying, but I don't even know why. Konoha. Just thinking about this place makes me dizzy. It's like I am their property. What was my reason for staying? Why did I bother to even train that simple-minded boy? He's so naive with his ideals. What makes him think that he can save the world? It made me angrier the more I thought about it. Why did I trust in him? How can Nagato put so much trust in this boy, who can't even do a fraction of what he could do? Everything about him is just so annoying. Even last night, when he treated me to ramen, he didn't even bother to use manners. What was he, 4 years old? Even Jiraiya sensei had proper etiquette while he ate, while not much for anything else. He just gets under my skin. Clearly Nagato was not in his right state of mind when he thought this would work, placing that chakra rod fragment into Naruto like that. Whatever his thoughts were, I highly doubt they were rational. I continued walking through the forest, replaying my thoughts over and over again. It was a cacophony of noise that wouldn't go away. Why stay here and help him? He is the enemy. Why do you trust him? Why did Nagato end his life for this boy's benefit? I don't know why. Everything about this seems wrong. Is Naruto really the child of prophecy? Even I couldn't figure out exactly what makes Naruto a little different from the rest. He's so childish. And that smile. That was when I stopped my train of thought. His smile was different. That warmness it created. It seemed like his smile could brighten the whole entire village and leave a glow for days. For some reason, every time I am around him, it is as though I don't have as much to worry about. Can I honestly feel that way about someone who seems to know nothing? He's young. End first person. Konan turned her head and saw a silver-haired, mask-bearing Junin walking right behind her. His expression was neutral, but you could feel a knowing vibe radiating off of him. Is there something I can help you with, Kakashi? Not really, Kakashi replied firmly. I am just watching you to make sure you don't do anything rash. She smiled sadly, followed by a light scoff. TCH. It's not like I could leave if I wanted to. I would be dead before I even get halfway out of this place. True, he replied with acceptance, but I doubt Naruto would allow that to happen. What do you mean? That gained her interest rather quickly. Right, believe it or not, he already sees you as a comrade. He doesn't let his friends die so easily, the silver-haired man responded while gazing into the sky. Her eyes widened slightly from what she just heard. Comrade? Yes, in his eyes, you are already his friend. Kakashi came back as if answering her unvoiced question, and although I don't totally agree with your residence, it's not really my decision either. Konan didn't have any retort to that statement. It only left her to ponder more on the reasons she survived that fight with Madara. If Naruto wasn't there to come in and save her the way he did, she would have died and hit the final nail in the Akatsuki trio's coffin. Naruto was there almost as if he already knew, but she knew her friend Nagato had something to do with that. He came just in time to save her and basically gave her a second chance. Her eyes widened slightly once she thought about something. It was something that she didn't think about earlier and would keep the new question for later. Naruto is a strange character, Kakashi, the blue-haired woman replied bluntly while staring at the ground. The man's sweat dropped at her statement while closing his eye and rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, he gets that a lot. But, the male Junin continued while opening his eye again, it's just the way he is. Everything he does influences everybody. He has a strange way of getting into everyone's heart. Konan couldn't help but feel a little truth coming from that statement. She thought about how Nagato changed after hearing Naruto's explanations in the hollowed paper tree. I can see that from the way the villagers view him. It's almost as if everyone depends on him. Well, you can say that, Kakashi replied in a slightly resigned voice. He's like a beacon of hope that gives everyone confidence, not only in themselves but with the entire village as well. Maybe that's what keeps me around him, she thought while looking around into the trees. I did say that he gave everyone hope. Did I think I was an exception? Her thoughts went back to her fight with Tobi, Madara again during the time she spoke so confidently about Naruto's light. I know. He gave me hope as well, the blue-haired leaf nin replied solemnly while looking over her shoulder. She started taking a few more steps toward the leaf village while wiping her eyes, and don't worry about me. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. Not because I have no choice, but because I have a duty to fulfill. He is the child of prophecy after all. She then paced alone back into the village, leaving Kakashi to himself. Once he was alone, he started quietly thinking, the village isn't the only thing that Naruto seems to be getting to. After that was said, a slight smile crossed his face. Maybe she isn't all bad. Space break equals 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 equals. Whispers came from all directions as a woman walked through the village in rubble. Things were sort of a mixed match of buildings and debris as people were busily working trying to fix their old lives that they cherished. It didn't take long before people realized who was walking beside them and they immediately dispersed trying to get away from her. Most people who already knew who she was just ignored the woman and pretended like she wasn't there, as if she were a part of the background that held no significance. She didn't care though. Obviously she wanted to tell them off, but trying to talk to people who were living in their own world was kind of hard to achieve. You can't tell anyone something if they were too blind to take things into consideration. What was the point? They would only ignore her or talk over her, which was something common to people who wouldn't understand what she had to go through. She was currently brooding at the moment, which was something that was becoming a habit for her. She wasn't just in thought because now she fell back into her anger phase again. It seemed as though what Kakashi said didn't really stick with her very long because she was already thinking that Naruto knew nothing of her. She layered herself with more denial at the boy and what he can achieve, although earlier she said herself that she believed that Naruto is the prophetic child and that he gave everyone hope. Her random mood swings were getting more severe the longer she stayed around here. While the woman was in her thoughts, an Anbu member poofed randomly in front of her. It didn't scare her, although it did make her flinch because she was deep in thought beforehand. The Anbu stood only for a second before he ordered, "Follow me." Knowing she wouldn't be able to decline, she nodded her head silently and let him lead the way. After following the Anbu for several minutes, they came across another end of the village. It had a lot less people in it who were busily building houses and frames for support. People were painting, lining electricity, creating plumbing systems, fixing roofs, and whatever other mundane tasks that were required to build housing. You could also see a small group of children playing off to themselves across the street from where the buildings were being built. 2 were girls while the other 2 were boys, and each child looked no older than 5 years old. The sight of the children playing and enjoying themselves almost brought a smile to her face. Almost. All right, the cloaked figure replied to the blue-haired woman, snapping her attention away from the children. Your task is to help these people in whatever they require your assistance for. You will continue working until they stop working. The Anbu was replying in an authoritative tone, signifying it wasn't a request but a command. She only nodded her head again and looked unamused at her surroundings until a voice broke through the air. So, is this our help that was sent to us by the Hokage? An older man, roughly in his 50s or 60s with small rectangular glasses whose hair was graying on his head and goatee from age came up while grasping a hammer in his hand and laying it on his shoulder. Yes, Tazuna-san, this kunoichi will be aiding you with your work for today. Good, good, the elder man replied while rubbing his chin, she will do just fine. All I needed was one person and it looks like I can now settle my worry. The Anbu looked at the new Junin once more before he disappeared by Shunshin, leaving Konan with the elder man. He gave her a once-over and smiled before he wiped his forehead with his arm. Well, grab some tools and let's get down to it, shall we? She only nodded her head with an emotionless mask across her face, took the tools that were lying around and began doing whatever Tazuna asked of her. Space break. It was around 3 o'clock, the hottest part of the day. Konan had been helping basically all day and was seeing the effect on herself. She was sweating profusely and always asking for water more often than necessary, but she never did complain or bother about anything else other than being dehydrated. It was more or less like she was on autopilot and just doing the labor like a machine. Numb to life in her surroundings and only did what she was told. Sometimes she would also mumble something to herself, but it was always too low to make out whenever she did say something, so it was ignored. Tazuna began to watch the woman as she slowly descended into an even more robotic state, if that were possible, and began to question it. He may be old, but he knew that something was troubling the young woman and keeping her from giving her all to the project. She was a leaf ninja. She should be more willing than even the foreign builders around here. She began to raise another structure beam for the second story of a house, making sure it was perfectly straight and at the location it was needed. When she went to grab nails and the hammer to put it in place, the beam began to lose balance and started tilting in the direction of other beams that were currently unattached because other workers were busy with those beams about to nail their own. Hey, you shouldn't leave the beam unattended, it might hurt somebody, a grisly voice said to Konan as she looked over and saw the same gray-haired man she met earlier holding the beam with his two hands with a smile. Her eyes widened a little but she regained her mask, not wanting to really talk to the man. Sorry, she replied with blank eyes while taking the wood from his hand and placing it back where it was before. The man looked at her for a moment but started working beside the woman trying to keep a steady pace with himself. After watching her continue with her mechanical behavior, he decided that now was the time to speak up. Look, I know it's not really my business, but I am just curious to know if you are alright. Yes, she replied blankly and hastily to him, not really veering her eyesight from the work she was doing. Tazuna sighed at her quick remark. Look, I've seen a lot of people do the same thing, so I know when you say you're fine, you're not really fine. You are right, the blue-haired woman responded to him calmly, still busily working on another support board. Tazuna widened his eyes at the sudden agreement she replied to him, so, there really was. You were right about it not being your business, she retorted to him, making his face turn slightly sour. After his face turned sour though, he changed it to acknowledgement as he thought to himself. It seems as though she doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe I can get. He began to raise another beam as he started talking. You know, I had a friend, no, a son who died as a hero amongst our village. Konan continued working as if she wasn't listening, so Tazuna continued, but a thug took control of our village and made it seem like my son was a criminal for doing heroic deeds. That evil man took my son and executed him in the town square. He paused slightly at the memory and closed his eyes while a sigh escaped his lips. Of course, it left the whole town in shock, not only for the execution, but for the fact that he was a hero amongst them that fell at the hands of this evil man. Needless to say, the whole town lost hope and I fell into a depression along with my daughter and grandson. We all lost hope. Konan stopped, but for only a second once she realized that she was listening and continued what she was doing. The entire town and I decided that we needed a bridge so we could get supplies a lot faster and have a booming economy. After our hero fell out, our village took a turn for the worst and we lost all trades coming into the village. It was mainly due to the evil man that controlled our land. He then shifted his eyesight to the beam and began hammering. While we were working on the bridge, however, the evil man began killing off the bridge builders and endangering all of the rest that were alive because he felt this bridge was a threat to his services, which it was. He picked up another nail and began hammering it into the beam. We were in a bind and not really knowing what else to do, so we decided to hire a group of leaf ninja to protect us until we finished the bridge. But morale was falling between the bridge builders, so most of them quit. Since I was the leader of the bridge builders, I had a duty to my village and my family to build that bridge. He lowered his eyes, so I never gave up and I tried my hardest to finish as fast as I could. It wasn't until a scuffle with a missing mist ninja that I thought it was the end of me. He was hired by the evil man to kill me and the rest of the bridge builders so that we couldn't finish. Tazuna began pounding with the hammer again, trying to keep his body occupied and to relinquish some of that mental stress. While the ninja I paid for assisted me, I met the mist ninja for the first time. He was a very cruel man when I met him. He was out to get me and I knew it when I saw him. The ninja I hired protected me and defeated the man. The blue-haired woman stopped hammering and continued listening. She was actually listening to his story, although she also figured that it wouldn't help to try and stop him. Not only that, but she didn't want for him to stop, which was odd to her. Noticing discreetly that she was actually paying attention to him, he played a smirk on his face and continued. I was escorted to my home and began building on the bridge. The ninja watched over me and the other builders while we worked, but he stopped a second for added effect. That same mist ninja came back and tried to attack again. Those ninja fought their best to defeat him and his teammate that helped him. Unknowing to us, the evil drug lord decided to ambush us all during the fight and thought he could outnumber us to win. Tazuna picked up a beam and put it in place. That mist ninja then realized that he no longer had to kill me and went after the thug and mini army he created and ended the evil man's life. He turned and gave her a grin, causing her to immediately turn her head and continue her building as if she was never paying attention to him in the first place. Needless to say, we were able to finish the bridge and gain a prospering village again. That statement caused the man to heartily laugh out loud. Others looked at him with a grin, probably workers from the village he came from, but only for a moment before continuing on their tasks. I was so grateful to the ninja that helped me that I even named the bridge after one of them. His laugh then died down and he put on a confident look. The one I named it after was the one that gave me and my family the courage and hope to move on, continue with our lives, and never give up. When I first met him, I thought he was just another brat who didn't give a damn about anything but himself. But once I realized that he never gave up on his word and was even the one that wanted to ensure my safety the most, I changed my mind about him. A thankful smile appeared while he said the next few words. He looked over to Konan, who had forgotten that she was even looking at him, and said, "He gained my respect." The boy was very strong and selfless. Something that the entire village of mine needed for a while. In our village's eyes, he is pronounced a hero. His name is Naruto Uzumaki, the blue-haired woman replied barely over a whisper. Tazuna gave her a surprised look as it quickly turned into a smile. Oh, so you know him. Konan's eyes widened slightly at the man's sudden answer. Naruto was. A round of laughter from a group of children kept her from finishing her thoughts. After hearing the children, Tazuna noticed them and walked over to the edge of the building from the second floor to see the little kids from earlier. They were playing around and on top of a building that was still in shambles, right next door to the building they were fixing. The one next door looked close to collapsing on itself and they were playing like it was no big deal. With a great shout and a hand to his mouth to enhance the sound, the man yelled to them, "Hello, young children. I'm sorry, but you can't play in the buildings. Please move into the street. That house is dangerous." Konan couldn't hear the children too well, but she could make out something that sounded like a, "Yes sir," and a shuffling of feet. Tazuna walked back over to Konan and gave her a smile. "Sorry about that. So as I was saying, you really. Bam. Boom. Bomb. A giant sound erupted from the building next door as it began to crumble and fall to the ground. All 3 stories of it. The workers all huddled to the edges of the second story to get a good glimpse at what happened, even though they missed most of it and just saw the ending where smoke plumed into the air. Tazuna looked at it for a moment and breathed a sigh of relief before walking back over to the blue-haired woman's direction. Well, at least the children got out of it before. Ah, Miyo-chan. Tazuna's face went morbid as he rushed back to the edge of the project. He looked over and saw 3 kids huddled together in shock. If he remembered correctly, there were 4 children instead of 3. A girl was missing from the group. A little girl is trapped inside the building. What? A male worker shouted as he looked over. He noticed the building in its state as his face went serious. We have to get her out of there. All right everyone, FOLLOW huh? Tazuna stopped once he saw Konan dash through the beams and jump. She offered almost no patience for the rest of the builders as she turned into hundreds of papers and flew to the crumbled mess that was once a home. Once she reached the building, she formed back into herself from her waist up and asked the children, "Where was she when you last saw her?" They were too scared to speak, so they pointed into the collapsed area in the same direction. Konan narrowed her eyes and dispersed herself into hundreds of papers again and flowing herself through the entire building, going through all of the nooks and crannies that the building had to offer. After about 10 or 15 seconds, one of the papers attached itself to a human figure huddled into a corner of the building, lightly sobbing to herself. All of the rest of the paper came to the one piece that found the girl and slowly formed itself into Konan again. After 10 seconds or so, Konan was kneeling down next to the girl looking at her feeble figure. The space was a tight squeeze, but had enough room to fit another person in it before it became uncomfortable. "Are you alright?" the Junin asked the little brown-haired girl. The girl lifted her head up to reveal watery green eyes and lightly nodded her head. Konan stared at the girl in thought. Good, at least she's uninjured. "Alright, I am going to get help get you out of here. I'll be right back," the woman replied to the feeble girl. As soon as Konan got up to leave, the little girl grabbed the Junin's sleeve tightly and started crying onto the woman. "Please, don't leave me alone. I'm scared." Konan felt a pang in her chest. It was an unusual feeling, but it was a feeling that gave her a forlorn look on her face. She couldn't place her finger on it, but the feeling was something familiar. After brooding for a moment, she began to speak in a gentle tone. "Don't worry, I will protect you and get you out of here safely. I promise." When she said those words, she put on a slight smile that made the girl stop crying almost instantaneously. She tried once more to get up, only to have the little girl grip on her sleeve even tighter than before. Another grief-stricken look appeared on the Junin's face as she stared back down at the girl. "Don't go. Please stay with me." That statement caused her to hesitate. Should she really leave a child in here alone? It would only be a moment before Konan was back. But what if something happened to the little girl while she was outside relaying the information of the young girl's condition? After another moment, Konan created a paper clone of herself that then dispersed through the rubble to tell the other workers of the child's location and the damage. After about 5 minutes or so, the workers finally pulled the shambles apart to reveal a quiet Konan with a female child cuddling beside her. Many of the workers' faces lit up upon seeing the young girl was safe. When Konan pulled herself out of the building with the girl cradled in her arms, Tazuna put on a relieved grin. "I checked her for any problems and she is fine," the blue-haired woman replied to Tazuna and the rest of the workers. "That's good," Tazuna responded with a sigh. "Anyone else in there?" "No, it was just the girl and I," Konan retorted rather tiredly. Tazuna looked at the girl cradled in the Junin's arms and grew a warm smile at the picture. So, the woman does have a heart after all, he thought quietly, watching the scene before him. "Mio-chan, my precious daughter, where are you?" "Mommy." The girl yelped happily in the direction of her mother's voice. Pushing through the crowd of people that gathered at the site was a woman with long brown hair and dark pine green eyes. "Oh, Mio-chan, there you are." The woman came up to her daughter and almost teared up at the revelations of the young girl's cuts and bruises. The girl ripped herself from Konan's arms and ran to her mother with a wide smile on her face. The mother saw her daughter and opened her arms to allow the little girl to jump in them freely. Once a few tears were shed from the couple, the girl burst with excitement and pointed at Konan. "Mommy, mommy. That woman saved me." "Oh really?" The woman answered with an exaggerated smile. She then cast her gaze upwards and soon found a lock of eyesight with the blue-haired woman. A slight frown began to form on Konan's features once she saw the girl's mother produce a scowl emanating a disgusted pressure. "Mommy, are you all right?" The girl asked her mom, who quickly shed her disgust and put on a warm front as if her actions earlier never happened. "Of course dear, I am fine now that you're safe," she replied cheerily while snuggling her nose to her daughter's hair. She nuzzled back and forth a few times until a slight rub across something foreign caught the woman's interest as she opened her eyes. "Miyoko, what is this?" The girl's grin spread even wider. "Oh, that nice woman gave it to me. Isn't it pretty?" The mother looked in the young child's hair and saw a white origami flower wrapped into her hair in a similar style that Konan used herself. A light frown appeared on the woman's face as she peered over to the junin that saved her daughter's life. A fraction of a second later, the mother pulled the flower from the girl's hair and tossed it on the ground, but not without a temper tantrum from the little one held in her hands. "Mommy, what are you doing? That was mine and that nice lady gave it to me. Enough. I will hear no more of this. We are going home," the woman sneered while she began taking steps away from the buildings. Hey, wait a minute. Aren't you going to give the ninja a thank you, or something?" Tazuna asked while raising one of his hands in the air as if he was trying to flag her down. The mother stopped in her tracks as she turned her head and gave a look that could kill, as if I would ever be grateful to someone like her. She then continued walking, leaving the builders to glare at her with revulsion. After another moment slipped by, the gray-haired man changed his face into one of disapproval. "What a hateful woman," Tazuna responded while sauntering himself over to the blue-haired Junin, heaving a sigh while he did so. "People have certainly changed nowadays." Konan didn't say anything. There was nothing to say, really. The woman knew who she was and treated her as if she were nothing more than a common rat. A sorrowful face took hold as the Junin silently walked over to the lone origami flower that was thrown on the ground and gently picked it up with an uneasy hand. Staring into the flower, she fell back into her thinking phase and tried to swallow it up. But the longer she dwelled on it, the harder it was to stifle her emotional cracks. A few moments passed before Tazuna walked over to Konan and put a hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" the gray-haired man asked with concern, trying to get a view of her face. Konan took the flower from her hand and gently let it fall apart in her grasp before she turned her face to view the worried man. "I'm fine." She then put on her emotionless face and tried hard not to cry as she started walking toward the half-built building. When she turned her body to walk, however, Tazuna could have sworn that he saw a tear fall from her eye. She had to get out of here, this village, because if she didn't soon, she would probably go mad. Space break. It was 9:30 at night and there was still no sign of Konan. Naruto had gone through several ramen cups in his apartment just to try and stop his anxiousness. He tried to tell himself that it wasn't anything spectacular, that it was just because she had to work a little late than normal. It was his constant jitters that confused him, but all the same made him worry even more. Could she have been ambushed? No, she is much stronger than that. But she did say that she wasn't going to put up a fight if she did get jumped by someone, didn't she? She didn't say that she wasn't going to defend herself though. Plus, the Hokage told the villagers that they couldn't mess with her. After running those thoughts through his head, his worrisome feelings left him for the time being. He had his typical orange ninja gear folded and put into a drawer as he felt more comfortable getting into something more house appropriate. He put on some cargo shorts and a black shirt that had an imitation of the Uzumaki swirl on the front. The swirl was colored orange as the boys' cargo shorts were a paste color. The blonde ripped the packaging of another ramen cup and began pouring water into it. After he finished that, he turned off the faucet and went over to the microwave to place his ramen cup on the turntable. He then closed the door with a click and pressed the 3 on the microwave, which beeped and started cooking the ramen, counting down from 3 minutes. He sighed to himself at the unarrival of the blue-haired woman. Why was he so stressed out over this? He didn't even know her that well. He paced over to the couch and plopped himself onto the cushion in a tired manner. Was he really tired? He didn't do much today, but he felt as if the life had been drained from him. He looked out into the dimly lit street from his giant window and saw a person or two walk past his house now and then. The people in his village have softened to the idea of him being around. He remembered back to the time where no one ever came down his street unless it was absolutely necessary, but they would move rather hastily to avoid contact with the supposed demon that they feared. Now when he sees people outside, it is as though the people are comfortable and even almost happy that they are walking down his street. A total mirror opposite of what was normal to Naruto back in the day. He looked over at the new bouquet placed on the windowsill that was left to him the night before after Konan remembered the others turned to ash and pondered her safety again. His gaze stared into the flowers in a spacey manner as he reminisced about the times when he was still a preteen. Things were so much simpler then. He didn't have to worry about anyone specifically after him. He didn't have to worry about doing anything he didn't want to do. It was just him and Team 7 doing missions and enjoying each other's company. Even though things were far from perfect, they were happy times. Now it's as though things took a turn for the worst. Sasuke, a member of Team 7, defected from the Leaf. Kakashi already died once and the Akatsuki came after the Jinchuriki and hunted him down, all because that Madara guy was in control the entire time. Flashback. Naruto shook his head as his Rinnegan faded into his normal ocean blue eyes. They still felt like they were pulsating, but it was slowly fading away through time. Nagato watched the boy as he composed himself and gained proper footing. After obtaining this kind of new power so quickly, the redhead knew that it took a little time to adjust. Naruto, he called, gaining the interest of the blonde. The Jinchuriki blinked a few times and looked upon the crippled man who had seriousness in his eyes, which was totally the opposite from a moment ago. There is a man that you have to look out for. He is the one behind everything. The collection of Biju and every other mission that was completed throughout Akatsuki was actually under authority of this man. His power is great and he is a terrible threat to yours and Jiraiya-sama's vision of peace. Naruto didn't know what to say to that. He always thought Pain was the one behind it all, but it was this other man that the blonde didn't know. The boy grit his teeth but continued to listen. He used me as a tool and used my pain and inner turmoil as a catalyst for his diabolical plan of world domination. I didn't know it right off the bat, but I overheard him while I was investigating his character. I didn't trust him the moment I laid my eyes on him and realized my suspicions were correct once I overheard him talking to another Akatsuki member, the one known as Zetsu. Nagato lowered his head in a shameful manner, but while learning his plans, my pain and hatred still overtook me and I fell oblivious to the outcome of his scheme if it were to ever come to fruition. I only cared about creating peace through devastation and thought I could wipe him out whenever I had all of the Jinchuriki. Truth be told, before I ever fought you, the man came to me ordering that it was time to capture you. I had an idea of his plans then and it made it even worse because I already knew who you were. It made me hesitant, but I had to comply. In this machine, Nagato threw his eyes to the floor, as much as it aids me, leaves me just as vulnerable if anyone were to ever attack. I had to act. Nagato, are you telling me that you knew what he was planning the entire time? Konan asked in a concerned voice. Nagato looked over to his teammate and gave her a light nod. That's right, Konan. But why didn't you tell me? I could've. This is exactly why I didn't tell you, the Rinnegan wielder retorted with a calm tone. I knew you would overreact and try to abandon everything that the leader worked for. It would have been foolish and you would have been killed upon treason. But Nagato, I understand Konan, But you have to realize that there is a time and place for everything, and that time would have been irrational. I was only trying to protect you. The blue-haired woman had no rebuttal and fell deathly silent as she turned her view away from her friend. Naruto clenched his teeth even harder and began digging his fingers into his palms. Hearing their conversation that was passed between another was almost unbearable. This type of manipulation was unacceptable in his eyes. His own cousin was being used as some human meat puppet to a man that doesn't even appreciate it. Nagato, he growled in a deep tone, no one should ever have to go through something like that. That is why I am telling you all of this, the redhead answered as he took in more shallow breaths. This man needs to be stopped. If he is not, then the world as we know it will perish along with everyone in it. Name, Naruto whispered, causing the redhead to strain his hearing. What? Naruto looked up with an angry glare and spoke once more, his name. What is his name? Nagato raised his head and put on a deathly serious facade. His name is Madara Uchiha. End flashback. Madara Uchiha, the blonde repeated in his mind while breathing in the apartment scent that he started to grow accustomed to. That name was engraved into his memory and would never disappear no matter what happened. The things that man did to his cousin were almost unforgivable and would never fade away as quickly as Jiraiya's death. Click. Naruto was jolted from his thoughts as he pounced up to witness the source of the sound. His eyes widened once he gained a sight of the person he wanted to see this entire time. Konan was standing in front of the front door with a tired but mentally tired look as she gazed to the floor. She looked as if she was spending a lot of time in thought, but who could really blame her, right? Naruto peered at her face and mimicked her slight frown that appeared on her features. Are you alright, Konan-chan? The blonde asked cautiously, trying to get a better glimpse of her reaction. She was completely silent and didn't answer Naruto's question or curious gaze. She just stayed in the same spot and looked to the floor as if something was going on down there. Naruto noticed this and tried to ask her another question to at least release the frozen atmosphere that was placed upon the room once she stepped in. Do you want anything to eat? I can buy you something if you don't want ramen. Konan clenched her fists tightly while obscuring her vision in between her blue locks. There was something on the inside that was threatening to burst forth any moment, but the woman was holding it and trying to keep her grasp on it as tightly as she could. Why do you call me that? Huh, call you what? The blonde asked while scratching his head. He was confused of her question and it left him quite baffled. He didn't remember calling her anything bad, so why did it feel like he was getting his head chewed off? The blue-haired Junin only became even more irate than before. She gnashed her teeth trying to hold back the emotion as she slowly stuttered out a sentence. Why do you put, Chan, A at the end of my name? What is this? I can't control my stuttering. What's wrong with me? Naruto saw her face mixed in between sadness and fury and a tiny hint of confusion. There was something about her that made him feel uneasy, but he should try to cheer her up. Maybe making a smile will change it. He then grew a foxy grin from ear to ear and responded with clarity, I do that to all of my friends. There's that smile again. Why is he smiling? Friends? Her head raised up in a furious rage, her facial features grew sharp with her eyes widening angrily as her tone turned sour. Friends? How are we friends when you know nothing about me? But, Konan-chan, no, you don't understand shit about me. She pointed her index finger stiffly at him, causing his eyes to widen. You weren't there when my parents were killed when I was only 8 years old. You weren't there when I was forced to look after myself, not knowing when my next meal would be or where I would lay my head the next night. You weren't there when Jiraiya-sama was training me and my friends. You weren't there when Yahiko was killed. You weren't even there when I was asking myself if things would get better and they didn't. Naruto's frown deepened as she continued, so don't go saying that you can relate to me when you know nothing about me. She then threw her hands to her head and grabbed it in denial while closing her eyes. I can't stop myself. What is happening to me? This pain, it wasn't until a week ago that I first met you, so what gives you the right to say that you understand everything that has happened when you obviously don't? I've been through a lot more than you can comprehend. The things I've seen and witnessed will never leave my thoughts for as long as I live. Trust me. Naruto's frown sank even lower as she continued to belittle him. He began to look at his feet in shame and couldn't really say anything to her outburst. What could he say? She was right about the fact that he didn't know anything about her. She lived in an entirely different country than him, and he was thinking that things were similar between him and her. What was the same? I'm sorry, Naruto managed to sputter out after an eerie silence took hold of the apartment. You're sorry. As if your excuse can do anything, she retorted while calming down slightly. No matter what apology you throw at me, it will never help me forget my times in utter hell. Then let me stop the hell from ever coming back. Naruto shouted out loud to the woman, who widened her eyes in surprise. His face saddened a little further before he spoke again. I realize that your life was harder than mine, and I know that I can't erase the pain you've gained through the years. He softened his eyes as he let their sight fall to the floor, slowly clenching and unclenching his hands in the process, but at least I can end it here. Does he honestly think he can just get up and end it now, like it will just go away forever? I can't. I just can't believe him. There's too much. It won't go away. It hurts. How can you end it if you don't even know who I am? Konan was still running on hysterics, but her voice level dropped dramatically. Her face seemed to be turning from anger to sadness. Then teach me who Konan-chan really is. Naruto fumed, making the Junin freeze with a gasp caught in her throat. Teach me the one that cries at night all alone while others are enjoying the nights spent with their families. Teach me the kunoichi that had to swallow her emotions to live. Teach me the woman that never experienced happiness her entire life and lived as a scared child, unsure of what would happen tomorrow. Naruto gazed to the floor, not really looking in any certain area. Although, a second later, a slight upward curve to his lips foreshadowed his continuation. He stared at her once again and spoke loudly, let me stop the pain from ever coming back. You won't have to worry about it any longer because I will prevent anything from getting to you ever again, and that's a promise of a lifetime. Naruto produced a thumb and pointed to himself as he laid his trademark grin upon his face, and I'll tell you what. If you ever get this low in your life again and I can't change it, then I will just kill myself. I can guarantee that much because I never go back on my word. Konan gazed at Naruto, lost for words. Everything the blonde said was a lot to take in at once and was hitting it home to the blue-haired woman. She stood there for a second and tried to string a sentence together, although it was proving to be rather difficult since she felt a lump in her throat quickly form, keeping her voice from coming out, and Naru, too, was all she could utter at his response to her. Her mind was running in several different directions and didn't know which way was north. Naruto just said he wouldn't let her stoop this low again. He promised her. He looks so determined. That smile, I don't. What is? Impossible. I can't. Her face slowly started contorting itself as if it was trying to do something, and Naruto quickly took notice of her altering features. Her face looked like she almost had to sneeze, but he highly doubted that was the case. Trust. No, I, alone, Naruto, you. Her face contorted even more as she gnashed her teeth in frustration. She couldn't believe it. Naruto was pulling at her as if he knew which chord strike in her heart. His sincerity towards her, he used it so flawlessly. It was so warm, so bright. She couldn't explain it. Her whole being was falling apart, all because of Naruto's simple words. What was causing it? Was it the way he spoke? Or maybe it was because he was the prophetic one and had the linguistic power. She didn't really know at the moment because she couldn't focus. Her emotions were breaking through, which was something that has never truly surfaced in a long time. Her breathing turned into heaving. Her thoughts were incoherent. She tried to speak only to have nothing but his name come out. She was in shambles. But something was missing. Naruto's facial features lowered into a frown again as he took in her trembling body. The Jinchuriki stared at her. He could tell something was up, something he knew that only one thing could cure. After contemplating momentarily, He walked over slowly to her as she stood there making failed attempts at composing herself. Konan-chan, the blonde replied, getting Konan to raise her head and get a glimpse of him. Her eyes widened exponentially once she felt the blonde ninja wrap his arms around her, pulling her into him. It was one thing when he said those powerful words, but it was entirely another thing when it came to physical contact. There was only one other that could even get as far as the blonde did, but he passed away years ago. She would never let anyone else do something to her like this. Her instincts took over as she automatically retaliated his hug, trying to pry the boy off of her. Let go me. You bastard, get your hands off of me. Her voice trembled while she began to punch him in the head with her hands, but that was proving to be useless as the boy held on for dear life. You don't have to hold it in anymore, Konan-chan, let it go, the blonde murmured to the Junin, who was still trying her best to rip herself free. Let me go. Damn it. The blue-haired woman screamed as she began to lose herself. His comforting embrace was having an enormous effect on her, and no matter how badly she wanted to get away from him, she wanted to stay in his arms just as much. She craved it. She longed for it. She was hurting on the inside and pushed over the precipice. Something had to give. Naruto, aha. Her eyes closed tightly as her punches became less and less dangerous until they were nothing but light taps to his noggin. It wasn't long before all of her strength faded from hitting the boy and changed into her strength to embrace him back as tightly as she could. Naruto, yuahu. I Her overflowing dam of tears finally broke forth as her emotional wall caved in. She finally began to sob uncontrollably onto him, dampening his shirt in the process, proving to be something that was long needed. Her crying spree was massive as all of that pent-up stress, anger, sadness, loneliness, grief, and scared feelings poured out onto Naruto's black shirt. There, Konan-chan, Naruto whispered soothingly into her ear, shifting his left hand to the back of her head and pushing her into his chest while rubbing her hair calmly. Everything will be okay. Naruto carefully moved the hug onto the couch as she continued wailing onto him. As it turned out, he was absolutely right about what she needed, and it was well deserved just as he imagined it to be, although he got a little roughed up in the process. Everyone needed a hug like this eventually, even if they were an enemy bent on destroying other nations, so he let her cry and cry to her heart's content. He wouldn't leave her until she was absolutely finished. Needless to say, that proved to be a while because his ramen was never taken out of the microwave for the rest of the night. Morning time crept through the dusty windows of an apartment. The light bounced from the floor and lit all of the rooms in a bright early light. The inside of the apartment was cool in temperature, and the sun's rays that fell in gave the flat a homely feeling. The usual cacophony of bird calls seeped its way into the house, leaving a calm atmosphere to encase the entire building. Workers and ninja who were busy building houses hit their hammers and sanded their floors, and that sound also carried through the walls but was muffled to a light beating sound with more bass than anything. The light, through time, traveled all the way to a young woman's face as she laid there sleeping peacefully. Her blue hair was disheveled from the tossing and turning that one would normally go through while sleeping. Her flak jacket was tossed over next to the wall, leaving only her black long-sleeved shirt with the lone Uzumaki swirl on her left arm on her, as well as her ninja pants. Her leaf headband was left on a nightstand that stood beside the mattress, and her sandals were tucked away into a corner. Konan. She quickly opened her eyes and shot up in the bed. Once she did, she lifted a hand to her head in an attempt to staunch the morning headache. It must have been due to all of the crying she did the night before, so she closed her eyes and rubbed them a few times to get a better view of her surroundings. Her view was bleary at first, but it eventually cleared up into her normal field of vision. The sun didn't really help much because it was truly bright in her eyes. It was never this bright in Omegakure because of all of the constant rainfall, but she had to admit, it was a better feeling than waking up to storm clouds and rain. She put a hand to her face to block the brightness and walked over to the window. While closing the blinds, she slowly began to recall what happened the night before, although she couldn't remember anything of the time she was angry. A sigh escaped from her lips as she changed her pace to go to the bathroom and take a shower. She turned on the water to the right temperature and took off her clothes. Once she finished undressing herself, she stepped inside. After feeling the warm water cascade down her body, she continued thinking about what happened last night. That was truly the lowest point in her life, and she could vouch for that. She had never once broken down onto someone so freely like she did the night before. She never had to. But after reaching that point in her life where she had no one else who knew who Konan really was, she couldn't help it. She almost lost herself. All of her friends were gone, and she also aided in killing Jiraiya, the only father figure she could really confide in since her parents' deaths. It was a real weight on her and a big sadness on her heart, but oddly enough, she didn't feel like crying about it. Maybe it was from her crying session the night before. A slight smile formed on her mouth at Naruto's recklessness to help her. She had to give the kid respect for trying something so bold, but she couldn't deny the fact that she enjoyed it. It was calming and she relished every moment from that time. If people were to question her if she liked the boy, she would decline it. She had no real interest in love ever since her last boyfriend died and wasn't planning on having another anytime soon, if at all. Not only that, but Naruto was way younger than her, basically a decade younger. She would be pushing pedophilia if she ever thought of a relationship with someone his age. What on earth am I thinking? She thought with a slight snort and a shake of her head. There was no way she could ever see that happening, and even mentally laughed at the thought coming up. Speaking of Naruto, I wonder if he's awake. We will have to continue on his lessons today. She stepped out of the shower and dried herself. She put on the clothes she had the night before, but not without mentally complaining at the lack of wardrobe, knowing that her clothes probably stink. She stepped out of the bathroom and into her room where the rest of her clothes were. Afterwards, she put on her flak jacket and zipped it to the top. She then picked up her leaf hittite and wrapped it around her forehead, tying it into a knot with its tails to secure it in place. After she dressed herself, she slipped on her sandals and walked out of her room. Naruto's room was across from her own, so it wasn't much of a travel. She knocked on his door and awaited a response. When none came, she opened his door and took a peek inside. He could sleep as hard as a rock for all she knows, so why not check? She creaked the door open and peered inside. She then heaved a sigh and opened the door all of the way. He wasn't there. His room was completely empty and was also messy to boot. She teasked in disapproval but silently closed his door until she heard a click. Dirty and messy things were a pet peeve for her, as she was always a neat and tidy type. Now she could only guess he was in the living room waiting on her to get up. She took a few steps until she came around a corner and made her way to the living room. Hey, Naruto, she stopped abruptly once she stepped the corner. No one was in the living room either. A small frown appeared on her face at this new development as she stood there taking in the view. He must have been called for something important, she mused silently. After contemplating a little more on whether or not to go outside, her stomach grumbled lightly. She shook her head once she remembered she went straight home and didn't bother to grab anything to eat. She also mentally kicked herself for not eating once she got home too. Knowing that there was probably food in Naruto's kitchen, she turned around in a 180 and went to the cabinets. But what she saw when she turned around took her breath away. She slowly walked over to the dinner table and saw an object placed on the surface. She couldn't understand how she didn't see it earlier. It was literally something that screamed attention. Its design was almost perfect. She couldn't even speak, it was so beautiful. What lay in the center of the table was an orange-colored origami flower with a note beside it. She picked up the flower and looked at it in awe. She knew it had to have been from the orange-clad boy himself because, for one, Naruto was the only one living there other than her, and two, he would have been the only one to pick orange out of all of the colors in the color wheel. He was the only ninja that wore orange all of the time. She placed the flower back down on the table and picked up the note in its place. She began to read the contents, going over everything as slowly as she could. Dear Konan-chan, I hope you like it. You lost your old flower, so I thought I would make you a new one. I know it's not much and seems like a sad attempt to apologize for my short-minded thinking, but I hope that you can forgive me for what I've done. I'm sorry. Naruto. A small upward curve graced her lips as she read the note once more. His apology was so childish, bearing something handmade and a note that lay beside it. But something about the apology made her happy on the inside. Naruto actually took the time to make an origami flower, which is something that is not relatively easy, and judging from the way Naruto is, he didn't know a thing about origami. That can only mean he spent quality time on it. Konan was an origami master, so she could easily make another flower if she wanted to. But after her fight with Toby, she lost the motivation to even make another one for herself, so she was really awed at the fact that he even remembered, let alone bothered to make one for her. After concentrating on what she wanted to do, she snorted to herself in defeat and gave a pitiful smile of acceptance to the flower. She wrapped the right side of her hair into a bun, picked up the flower, and placed the orange piece into the bun to keep it in place. Content with another flower in her hair after a week and 2 days without having one, she moved herself around the table to the cabinets and tried to find something to eat. Lucky enough for her, there were canned and packaged foods that lined Naruto's cabinets from one end to the other to where she didn't have to rely on eating nothing but ramen. She fixed herself a plate of proportionate foods from different cans and whatever else she found that she wanted to eat and dug in. Once she finished, she washed her plate and put it back into the cabinet she found it in and sat on the couch to wait patiently. If Naruto was out doing something important, then it really didn't matter if she went out or not because her appearance wouldn't really change anything. He reminds me so much of Yahiko, Konan whispered quietly. Thinking of Naruto's linear thought processes let the woman reminisce with a nostalgic feeling. It was almost as if she were still there during the times she was younger. Back when they were kids, the orange-haired kid went off on his own a lot without telling them and usually left Nagato and her worried. He would always come back and have some overthought apology which really held no water and he would get chewed out by both of them. But in the end, they forgave him and it only made their relationship grow for one another. Eventually, all of those times are what brought her and Yahiko's relationship to the next level. His carelessness for battle damage and going out there not worried of the repercussions really stuck with her. He was reckless but devoted to his country and protecting his friends. A true hero. Hey, Konan-chan, I'm back. The blonde's voice broke her out of her train of thought. She sat up as a small smile etched onto her face. Believe it or not, she wanted to see the blonde brat even though he totally invaded her space the night before. But when she looked onto him, something that she would have never expected was revealed to her. Her eyes widened as far as they could go. It was almost earth-shattering upon seeing something like this. It was almost inconceivable. She fell backwards onto the couch and laid there, trying to say something but the shock really set itself in. What? Naruto blatantly asked, shifting closer to the blue-haired woman. He didn't like it when people did things like this but never actually said anything. What is it? Come on, tell me. Space break. Orange. Yamato looked over to Kakashi with a confused expression who looked back at him just as confounded as he was. As soon as the blonde found out his predicament, he rushed over to Kakashi's and Yamato's tent to figure out his problem. The blue-haired woman trailed behind the Jinchuriki wanting to know about it just as much as Naruto did, so, Konan, Kakashi, and Yamato were all in the same tent looking at the Uzumaki with puzzled reactions. The brown-haired Anbu has never seen anything like this before, so he had to ask, Naruto, how did you get orange hair? I don't know. The orange-haired boy replied in concern. Konan-chan was the one who pointed it out to me. I just learned about it a few minutes ago. The Uzumaki was hurt at knowing that his hair changed from the blonde that he loved, to a carrot orange color that he never really wanted. Blonde was his pride. He was basically the only blonde-headed boy in the entire Leaf Village, so it made him happy that he wasn't like the others. He didn't feel monotonous with his yellow hair. Even though orange was uncommon in the Leaf Village, Blonde was more awesome in his opinion. Well, can you tell us exactly what happened the last few days? Kakashi asked the blonde, now orange-headed boy. Naruto thought for a minute before he brought up anything. Well, all I've been doing recently is training on my Rinnegan powers. I haven't really done anything else. Yamato looked over to Kakashi again before going into a thinking phase, placing his hand to his chin. This only further solidifies our conclusions from the other day. I have to agree completely with you, the silver-haired Junin responded with a nod. That is exactly what it is. Wait, can someone fill me in? I'm kinda lost, the orange-haired boy asked curiously but with annoyance. Yamato stopped his thought processes and looked at the boy with a somewhat serious look on his face. Remember when we checked on you the other day for any abnormal behavior regarding the Rinnegan? After he received a head shake in approval, he continued, well, Kakashi and I talked about how the Uzumaki carried the Rinnegan as a Kekkei Genkai and, well, your hair change must have something to do with your awakening of the Rinnegan. That is if we are correct, Kakashi intervened, gaining the interest of the wood user. If Yamato is thinking the same thing as myself, then your Rinnegan has awakened your Uzumaki side of your genetics and placed equal dominance amongst your blonde side. The Uzumaki were known for their red hair, Yamato answered, continuing Kakashi's statement. We know it sounds a little too simple, but in other words, your Uzumaki red hair genes dominated with your blonde genes equally, making your hair orange. Naruto gazed into space after he heard that. He was a little sad knowing that his trademark blonde hair was replaced with a medium orange color, but after thinking a little longer, he realized it was something small and an aftereffect of the Rinnegan. He couldn't always have the best of both worlds, so he swallowed his pride and gave a smile. Well, I guess I can't complain. He then put his hands in his pockets. That only means my mom's side is finally coming in. Hold on, Kakashi said, cutting Naruto off before he could say any more. What makes you think that it's your mother's hair? Oh, Naruto responded, growing a huge foxy grin from ear to ear. I met the fourth Hokage. All three of the other participants in the room widened their eyes in surprise. No one really suspected that answer to come forth. Yamato and Kakashi knew what happened to Minato, and Konan had a basic idea as to what really happened. After a second, Naruto continued, he's the one who stopped me from becoming the nine-tailed beast. But, isn't the fourth Hokage dead? Konan blurted out, looking very confused to the others in the room. Well, not much is known about the Shiki Fujin technique, Kakashi responded while gazing over to the blue-haired woman. I'm guessing he must have put some of the last of his energy into Naruto before he died. He told me, Naruto began while staring intensely onto Kakashi, that the guy in the mask from Akatsuki was the man behind the fox attack 16 years ago. He said that he was so strong that not even he could do anything to stop him. Kakashi and Yamato immediately remembered the swirling masked man that they fought during their hunt for Sasuke. He's right, Kakashi-san, Konan told the silver-haired man. That man is the true leader of Akatsuki. He has worked in the shadows and bided his time until the time came for him to carry forth his plans. He used Nagato. It is all just some game to him. But if he used pain, then he is most likely using Sasuke too. The boy retorted with venom flowing from his syllables. It just as Jiraiya feared, the silver-haired man answered with a grim look to his features. That's who was behind the attack 16 years ago. Madara Uchiha. Naruto's eyes widened in realization. That's who Pain told me to watch for. Who is he exactly? Madara Uchiha was the former leader of the Uchiha clan who was supposedly defeated by the first Hokage. He is the only one with enough hate for our village to do something like this. Kakashi looked over to Yamato. We're going to have to tell the elders. Yamato nodded his head in agreement. What bad timing too, since what happened to Tsunade-sama this morning. Everything went silent for the orange-haired boy as he replayed that last message. What happened to Ba-chan? No one told you. The captain asked the orange-clad boy. When he received a headshake in rejection, he looked over to Kakashi, who looked onto him with a look of pity, then turned his head again to face Naruto and responded, she had a relapse. What? Naruto asked in a voice that held denial. What do you mean? Ba-chan was doing fine. What happened? Yamato knew the boy held some dear feelings for the Hokage, so he knew that Naruto wouldn't have automatically accepted that fact that was laid on the table. It seems as though she hasn't fully recovered from her fight with pain. Kakashi looked over to the orange-haired boy while Yamato continued, we only received the news recently, but from what we've heard, she didn't wake up this morning. That only means that she has fallen into another coma. Naruto lowered his gaze. Well, can I see her? Sure. Kakashi replied with an eye smile. I don't see why not. You don't have anything else to do right now and we don't need you for anything else. Alright then. Naruto yelled in excitement. I'm off to see Ba-chan. Later. He then dashed out of the tent with pep in his step. Konan looked over to the Jinchuriki's exit and contemplated. He seems to be troubled. The blue-haired woman noticed that Naruto tried to cheer himself up. He was sad 1 minute, but all of a sudden changed it into a grin and brushed it off as though it was nothing to worry about. If this were a couple of days ago, Konan wouldn't have noticed that, but now it's as if she all of a sudden gained an extra sense. Maybe I should follow him. Konan turned and went for the front flaps of the tent when an audible voice stopped her. Hold on, we have to talk to you for a minute. She turned around and saw the silver-haired man signaling for her to come back. Konan, while holding a flap in her grasp, looked outside again and saw the orange ninja running further away. She looked outward until he disappeared from view and inwardly sighed before letting go of the flap and turning back to Kakashi. Naruto blazed through the village while his mind was currently fixated on Tsunade. He couldn't believe that she went unconscious again. She was doing perfectly fine the last few days, so why did she all of a sudden slip into a coma? It didn't make any sense to him. He remembered her being seemingly normal for a while now and taking things as if nothing was bothering her at all. Hey, Naruto. The orange-haired boy screeched to a stop as he gained an earful of a familiar female's voice. His head darted around his shoulder and his gaze took in the appearance of his pink-haired teammate. Hey, Sakura-chan, the orange-haired boy let out as he flicked his hand in a greeting. Sakura came closer to the orange-clad ninja and gradually changed her face into confusion. Naruto, your hair. I know, isn't it strange? The Jinchuriki let out a snort and folded his arms. It has to do with my Kekkei Genkai. Sakura looked at him again before shaking her head as if it was unimportant. I guess you heard about Tsunade-sama, then. Naruto lowered his head and dropped his arms to his sides. Yeah, I wanted to see her again after I found out. The pink-haired girl gave a genuine smile and placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder, causing him to look up a little unexpectedly. Come on. Let's go together. Oh okay, Sakura-chan. Space break. She was like this when we found her this morning, the pink-haired medic Nin responded quietly while gazing at an unconscious figure laying in a futon. We don't know what happened but we all agree that she has fallen into another coma. The girl then kneeled beside the futon. None of us even know if she'll ever wake up again. Naruto gave a pathetic stare to the unconscious woman laying in the bed and mumbled softly to himself, Tsunade. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, Shizune responded with a smile and comforting gesture. I'm sure she will pull through this just like last time. She is a very strong woman and won't be put out by something so easily. The orange-haired boy looked to Tsunade's assistant and lightly smiled. He knew Tsunade wouldn't lose to something like this. She was the Hokage and a very independent person. She has a very strong will to continue living, so he was sure that she would pull through this. Maybe. Thanks, Shizune-chan. Sure. The black-haired assistant replied happily. Once that happened, a click occurred in Naruto's brain as he remembered something. Hey, Shizune-chan. The black-haired woman grunted. Do you have any of those chakra rods from any of the bodies of pain? He received a nod in approval. Why, yes I do, Naruto-kun. Is there a reason? Actually, he began while lighting up a little, I wanted to use them so I can make something, a type of weapon. I only need one of them. Sure, Naruto-kun, I'll send you one later whenever I get done checking up on Tsunade-sama. That answer earned a happy glare from Naruto and a slight inside giggle, although she didn't know why. Right after he giggled, Shizune spoke, I'm sorry if this seems rude but I can't help it because I have to know. Once the boy signaled her to continue, she asked, what did you do to your hair, Naruto-kun? The Jinchuriki sort of laughed at her question, causing the woman to look at him with perplexity. Everybody's been asking me that same question. He then shoved his hands in his pockets. It's because of my Kekkei Genkai. It just happened today, so I don't know if it's permanent or not. Well, Shizune started, I guess it matches your outfit and it doesn't look too bad, so I guess it's okay. I think Naruto should change his clothes, Sakura stated bluntly, causing a shocked reaction from the Jinchuriki. Now he is too orange for anyone to look at. Plus, I don't believe anyone is going to take him seriously with all of that bright color. Sakura-chan, what do you mean? Naruto shouted at his teammate, if I change to another color, then people won't be able to recognize me. Do you want the dangerous ninja to notice you? After a moment or two, he spoke up, maybe you're right. Finally, Sakura replied as if this was an ongoing battle, which it was. She asked him over and over again since they first became teammates to change into something more ninja-suited, but he always gave her a disapproving headshake and an onslaught of reasons why he liked his outfit. It was as if this was a life or death question to decide to change his clothes, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. She actually had this same argument with the Uzumaki numerous times and it all ended up the same way, except for now. I'd have to agree, Naruto-kun, Shizune spoke up trying to voice her opinion, although, you might like the color and design, it is also very irresponsible as a ninja because. I know, Naruto replied while waving his hand, just let me think about it. He then walked out of the room slowly, leaving Shizune and Sakura alone with Tsunade. Both of the women stared at each other confusedly. It wasn't long until the black-haired medic Nin spoke up, Naruto-kun is acting strange. I know, Sakura stated with a barely audible voice, he's been like this ever since he defeated Pain. Tsunade's assistant pondered on the situation a little further before Sakura broke the silence, I guess I'm going to check on Naruto. I'm starting to become a little concerned for him. Alright, Sakura. Take care. I will, she replied quickly as she waved her hand darted out of the room. Space break. Change my clothes. The Uzumaki thought quietly, I know it's irresponsible but, he pulled on his orange and black jacket and flowed his eyesight through the texture and colors, it's one of the only things I have left to remember Ero Sennin. The boy trudged through the street while he continued gazing at his jacket lost in thought. Jiraiya was a very important person to Naruto. Even though the perverted hermit was his godfather, he really acted as if he was his real grandfather instead. The blonde knucklehead really grew on him through the years and Jiraiya really grew on Naruto. The outfit was a gift from the Toad Sage during their 3-year training trip. It was something that the blonde truly treasured because it was something that was actually given to him from someone important. The relationship ended rather dramatically after the elder sage's death by the hands of Nagato. It was almost making him cry again at the loss, but he couldn't cry about that. No, not now. He already cried before, when he was alone and sure no one was around him. He had to keep strong in front of everyone else who believed in him. Nagato was just like Sasuke, the Jinchuriki resounded through his mind trying to change his thought path, both of their parents were killed. They both wanted to exact revenge for the same reason. Bump. Naruto shook his head and blinked his eyes a few times as he tried to figure out where he was. He fell flat on his butt after he hit an unknown object. When he looked up, he gained a view of an older man's back. Sorry, sir, the Uzumaki responded with honesty in his voice, I didn't see where I was, Tazuna-san. The orange-haired boy saw the man turn around and gained a sight of the man's face. The man looked at him for a moment before he spoke, those whisker marks, Naruto, is that really you? Naruto gave a bright grin, yes sir. It's really me. Naruto my boy, why you've grown a lot since we last met. You even changed from blonde to orange hair. Did ya diet or something? The Uzumaki gave a sweat drop expression. Well, it's a long story. The bridge builder let out a hearty laugh while the Jinchuriki chuckled nervously. Tazuna-san. Both Naruto and the elder man turned their views to a pink-haired girl running up to them. Oh hey, Sakura, isn't it? My how much you've grown. It really is you. How's Tsunami-san and Inari-san? The medic nin asked with a smile. Tazuna let out another brief laugh. They're both doing fine. Actually, Inari is helping me rebuild your village as we speak. Oh, that's awesome. Where is he? Naruto asked as he gave a salute to shield his eyes from the bright sun rays. I want to meet him again. I'll go get him. Give me just a minute. And with that, the older man departed in search for his grandson. A moment passed while Sakura looked on to her teammate. She knew that something was wrong with him, but she didn't exactly know what. He hasn't been too forthcoming with his answers lately and it has really been bothering her. He's actually been exponentially quiet compared to his original personality before the fight against Pain. She didn't really understand what was going on inside Naruto's mind, but she knew that it had to be something that was really troubling him. Naruto. The boy sat there lost in thought for the umpteenth time before the call finally registered in his mind. What is it? Sakura-chan. The pink-haired girl sighed once before she began. I've been watching you ever since you came back to Konoha from that fight with Pain and I can't really hold it in any longer. That statement really got Naruto hooked on what she was about to say. Well, what is it? Naruto, she started, I've known for a while now that there is something going on with you, but the problem is that I don't really know what is wrong with you. Even yesterday while we talked about Konan, I thought she was the problem, but I now realize that it's something else that you're not telling me. I've noticed that you've become very quiet and you don't like talking as much as you normally would. Is there something on your mind or something that you would like to talk to me about? The Jinchuriki looked at her a little funny because, normally, she doesn't offer a chance for him to vent. But, nonetheless, she is a best friend to him, so it's not like it is not supposed to happen, but usually it's the other way around. Truth be told though, Naruto doesn't really have a reason why he is acting this way. He never really thought about it until now because he's always thinking of ways to make Konan happier around Konoha, but thinking like that really doesn't really get him down too much. Nah, I'm fine Sakura-chan. There's no need to worry about me. He then threw a cheeky grin in her direction, making the medic nin feel a little weight on her heart. Are you sure, Naruto? I'm positive. The orange-clad boy replied cheekily while giving her a thumbs up. Sakura felt like he was still lying to himself, but she held her tongue because the medic nin knew that she would never get anything out of the boy anytime soon. Hey, Naruto! A voice yelled out in the distance. The Jinchuriki snapped his head to the source of the sound and saw a boy running up to Sakura and him. He looked like he was a preteen with black spiky hair that was slightly more tame than Naruto's. The boy was wearing a black sleeveless versus neck shirt with pale-colored cargo pants and wearing black sandals. Inari. The orange-clad boy asked with uncertainty as if he couldn't believe it. Yep. The young boy responded as he slowed to a stop in front of both the ninja. That's me. Wow, Inari. You've gotten a lot bigger from when I last saw you. The Jinchuriki laughed with a cheeky grin. You have too, Naruto, but I don't remember you having orange hair. I thought you were blonde. The accused smirked at his friend's question. I was, but I thought, I should try something different. Sakura eyes laid onto Naruto's face once he said that. I guess it's best to keep our mouths shut about what happened. After talking for what seemed like hours, but was really only a few minutes, both parties departed from each other and Naruto began walking towards Kakashi and Yamato's tent with Sakura walking beside him along a forest path. So, Zabuza's sword, Kubikiri Haucho, was stolen from his grave. The pink-haired girl asked Naruto for reassurance. The orange-haired ninja sighed once as he walked, while keeping his eyesight forward. Yeah, I can't believe it. I wonder who would steal it. Naruto thought about it, but no one really came to mind. I don't know. It could be anybody. Naruto. Sakura. Wait up. Both turned their heads and saw a teenager with brown hair, red fang-shaped tattoos on his cheeks, and dark clothes, riding a giant white dog over to them rather quickly. He seemed as if he was about to die if he didn't get to the both of them fast enough. What? They both replied in unison, what is it? Look. The brown-haired Inuzuka replied hurriedly, just listen. Tsunade has been dismissed as Hokage. That reply shocked both of the ninja. Both of their eyes widened dramatically. What do you mean, Kiba? The Uzumaki asked, concerned for obvious reasons, but the shock was evident in his voice. Tsunade's not the Hokage anymore because of her relapse. The Inuzuka yelled quickly, she's now been replaced by some guy named Danzo. I don't know who he is, but he seems really shady. Danzo. Both members of Team 7 yelled angrily. They knew exactly who Danzo was. He has always been one of the people that both of the ninja didn't like. He was very mean and full of dark secrets that no one really knew about. But now that he has taken the position of Hokage, he could really do anything that he wanted to do now. That isn't all though, Kiba responded so he could continue. He's also given permission to eliminate Sasuke as a missing nin. Naruto faced contorted in an even angrier face than before. What the hell do you mean? I'm not really sure I know myself, but I think since Sasuke has been a missing nin for a while, that Danzo guy is now trying to finally do something about it. The orange-clad ninja grew a vein on his temple. It seemed almost as if he was about to break. Countless thoughts were running through his mind and he really wanted to speak them a lot more freely. He was a ticking time bomb. What could he say? It just takes a small amount of air through his lungs and a violent release to ease the tension in his mind and do something about that small stress that keeps nagging him in the back of his mind. His best friend being the enemy of Konoha did that to him. He opened his mouth as he was about to speak. I'm going to see Danzo. Sakura grumbled while staring at Naruto. She looked him directly in the eye and wasn't leaving any room for rejection because she knew the orange-clad ninja would say the same thing. Usually when it involved Sasuke, that is what occurred. Both of them were the only ones that knew more than the missing nin side of him, so they often thought with identical ideas. Sakura did a 180 and took a turn back to Konoha. That was when Naruto grabbed her arm. Sakura, I don't think we should see Danzo, the Jinchuriki stated looking to his friend. His face was showing mixed feelings, but they also kept that depressed afterglow that seemed to emanate from his body. That same afterglow that he seemed to show all of the time ever since he defeated Pain. Naruto, we can't just let him get away with this. You know that guy is very dangerous and you can already see what he is doing. We can't. Sakura, the orange-clad ninja responded with a spaced-out tone, I don't think it's a good idea to see Danzo, at least, not yet. He took his grip off of her and looked into the forest. I think we should find out more about him before we try anything. We know Sai worked with him, so maybe he can tell us more. Sakura clearly took notice of this strange change that Naruto made. He didn't pitch a fit or storm off to go see Danzo himself. He actually kept a level head and thought of a way around Danzo without actually meeting him. Naruto, what are you talking about? She was clearly distressed because her teammate wasn't backing her up. We have to see Danzo. He's allowing anybody to go after Sasuke and kill him. The orange-clad ninja pondered on her statements but quickly made a rebuttal. Just trust me, Sakura-chan. If we can't get the information from Sai, then we will see him personally. Naruto clenched his fists and grit his teeth, but still held the same tone. Believe me, I want to run over there and ask him what the hell he is thinking, but something tells me that we should wait. The pink-haired girl looked at her longtime best friend with an exasperated sigh before shaking her head. She couldn't believe it, but she also agreed that maybe they should bide their time a little longer and learn more about him before doing anything rash. Fine. Space break. Konan let go of the flap and retreated back into the tent. The silver-haired Junin called her earlier after Naruto dashed off into the distance in search of the Godime. The blue-haired woman walked over to both of the other ninja occupying the tent and gave them a look of unamusement, but there was something about her face that wasn't as uninterested as it could have been yesterday. Now that all of that is settled, Kakashi began while looking over to the woman's figure, we would like to know everything you know about Madara Uchiha. She mentally sighed because the woman knew that this would be the first thing they would bring up. Since she blabbed about knowing who he was, the Konoha ninja didn't leave it unnoticed and brought it up the moment they had a chance. Honestly, she didn't feel like talking about it because that man was the main reason why everything bad happened to her friends and why she was almost brought to an end. He left a bad taste in her mouth if any of the earlier reasons didn't do justice. You have been a part of Akatsuki ever since it was first founded, Kakashi started while Yamato watched in silence, and we know that you have to have some kind of information on the man behind all of this. Konan wandered her eyes over both of the men and pondered momentarily. Both men were losing patience after the first few moments she didn't make a sound. But when they started to say something, the woman spoke. That man, Madara Uchiha, was the one that started it all. Both men gazed onto the woman with eyes that almost glowed with attentiveness and further held their tongues so she could continue. During my fight with Madara, he told me that he was the one that made Yahiko form Akatsuki. He also told me that he was the one that gave Nagato the Rinnegan. That response earned a bright shock evident on both of their faces. That didn't make any sense at all. How could Madara give Nagato the Rinnegan? But I don't believe what that foul man told me. Konan came back. Nagato told me himself that he awakened his Rinnegan at an early age, which makes me disbelieve what Madara declared so recently. Kakashi looked over to Yamato, who seemed to have the same curious expression, but stayed silent for the woman. The paper user sighed as she looked to the ground. The first time I met him, I was automatically suspicious of him, although Nagato seemed to be more knowing than I was. Madara secretly made himself a part of the group while Nagato took over as leader. He knew Yahiko wouldn't do something so evil as to try the Uchiha's plan, so he waited until the time was right. After Yahiko died, Nagato became mentally unstable at the loss of our friend, and was truly susceptible to manipulation. She felt like falling. She realized that Madara used all of them just like puppets. Even she played a role in Nagato's manipulation just by following with whatever her Uzumaki friend believed in. Even though she said all of those things about how Nagato was following his own beliefs during her fight with Tobi, she was now beginning to think that they all indeed played right into the Uchiha's hands. Her fists clenched tightly, but she still held her desired monotone. He came a month or so after Nagato became the leader of Akatsuki. He didn't join our group that day, but he did say he would keep an eye on us. After that day though, I noticed Nagato seemed to be more distant. As the months flew by, Nagato began putting his own plan of peace into motion. Gain all of the Biju, make an ultimate weapon that would make everyone too scared to fight and unleash it to the world. After the destruction with countless lives lost, people would begin to fear, but understand not to fight anymore. A peace based on fear. So that was Nagato's plan. Kakashi responded with a serious facade while narrowing his eye. That would have been truly catastrophic. It was his plan. But the longer I think about it, the more I begin to feel that Madara maybe had something to do with that. Either way, it wasn't long until after he joined the group. He put on a new front so none of the other Akatsuki members would know who he was. The only ones who really knew were myself and Nagato. None of the other Akatsuki ever realized that the buffoon of the group was indeed the leader, except for Zetsu, although I only found out about him knowing just recently. Kakashi and Yamato nodded silently as she continued her story of Madara. Flashback. Konan, have you done what I ordered? A red-haired man with pale skin, shoulder-length red hair, and purple ripple pattern eyes, asked the other person in the room. His voice was a little raspy, but normal nonetheless. His body was inside of a four-legged mechanical vehicle with his back protruding black rod shapes, and his demeanor was pretty passive as well as aggressive. They were in a room on the very top of a building in a megacar that held a lot of space for what was needed. Yes, Nagato, I have done what you have asked of me, flawlessly. Good, the man responded calmly as he looked on to a body that was lying on the ground. You have done well. He looked onto the body silently while mulling over thoughts inside of his head. He just received a corpse that held the requirements needed for his sub-plan. His full-fledged scheme was slowly falling into place. What about the others? He asked, still glaring at the body laying on the floor. His glare held no emotion, but somehow there was something there that could have been a bit of melancholy. Konan gazed at the man with a similar glare. Other Akatsuki members are handling those as we speak. Perfect. It won't be long now, Konan, he said while turning his eyesight to the rain that pelted the window of the room. Everything is coming together nicely. If my plan works as I think it should, then our group will be unstoppable and I will finally be able to live up to Yahiko's dream. To become a god. The paper angel held no statement for Nagato while he talked. She was truly worried for her friend, but only secretly because she knew that his anger was getting the best of him. Konan, place the body on the table. I have to run the test, the red-haired man told the other occupant in the room. She nodded and picked up the body with her paper technique. With a graceful swing of her hand, she lifted the body and placed it very delicately on a surface that was similar to an operation table. After the body was deposited on the surface, the two Akatsuki members could get a better view of what the person looked like. It was a man. His face and body was quiet. The figure didn't move, which can only mean he was dead. His hair was spiky and a deep carrot orange that truly stood out. His body and limbs were punctured with multiple black rods and even had smaller piercings that were placed on his lips, ears and his nose. Let's begin. And with that, the red-headed man got to work by pushing his chakra from the rods on his back and into the other body that was laying on the table. The man closed his eyes and began pushing more chakra into the other body. A minute or so passed until everything became silent. Konan, feeling unsure of her best friend, called out his name, Nagato. Was it successful? Yes, Konan, it was, the man on the table replied with a strong voice, and it also has an advantage. Konan widened her eyes slightly from the man's sudden voice. The body on the table sat upwards and slowly opened his eyes. The eyes were the same as Nagato's. The orange-haired corpse unveiled light purple eyes with a ripple pattern on them displaying 4 or 5 ringlets encasing the pupil. The man flexed his muscles and was slowly clenching and unclenching his hands as if trying to get the feel of the body. It seems my hypothesis was proven correct. These eyes have become Rinnegan. How is that possible, Nagato? The blue-haired woman responded with curiosity. Because I have fully exposed this body to my chakra. The Rinnegan is infused with my chakra, so the corpse has to compensate for the lack of my ocular ability. This body, it created its own temporary Rinnegan. Interesting. The orange-haired corpse slowly rotated his body to make his legs flop off of the table. Silence encased the room as he adjusted himself to the newfound strength. Without moving too much, he carefully pushed himself to get his feet to touch the floor. His left foot, then his right foot, until he was semi-crouching on the floor. He was shaking vigorously, but trying his hardest to adapt in his newfound body, which was proving to be rather difficult at the moment. I also can't feel anything. This body feels numb. Which can only mean the nerve endings are gone, the corpse responded tiredly in between gasps for air. Do you need help, Nagato? The female Akatsuki asked the corpse in the room, who shook his head in rejection. It's alright, Konan, I can handle it. With more strength, meaning chakra, pushed into the body, the corpse was becoming increasingly stronger and eventually reached the very top of his height. His breathing became less and less strenuous as he stood there. Eventually, he looked semi-normal while he checked his body for any distress, but luckily for him, the corpse's body was doing as it should. Seeing Yahiko's body standing there left Konan feeling a little sad for good reason, and her face frowned slightly at the corpse's appearance. Don't feel sad, Konan, Nagato responded to her with a hint of sympathy, knowing what she was thinking about. Now Yahiko can become a god like he originally wanted to be. He's finally living his dream, and we are living it with him. The kunoichi still held a frown, but only temporarily as she heard someone snicker. They both averted their sight to a man behind them. He was wearing a dark robe that covered pretty much everything except for his face, but that was not needed because he wore an orange swirling mask that had one hole for his right eye to see through. You seem to be adjusting very well to your new body. I assume you are working on others. Nagato narrowed his eyes only slightly as he heard that. That is none of your business. The man only chuckled at his response and held both of his hands up. Don't worry. I'm not trying to do anything to you. I only came here to merely talk. Nagato, in Yahiko's corpse, further narrowed his eyes at the man as he stood there. This man has visited him before, so there was no reason for immediate retaliation. But even though this man visited Nagato previously, there was something about him that he didn't like. Of what? Well, the masked man started, I am impressed that you have used the Rinnegan so well. Even I wouldn't have thought of something like that. But putting that aside, I thought I could make a request. We don't take requests from outsiders, the blue-haired woman responded coldly. If you have nothing better to say, then leave. Actually, I think it would interest the both of you, the cloaked figure answered as if he knew he was right. Now, I know that you, Nagato, have an unsettled hatred with the Leaf Village as much as I do. The man's body was holding no gestures for any signs of betrayal while Nagato inwardly flinched at the use of that village's name so freely. In exchange for my services, I only wish to help you gain the power necessary for your plan to work. See, you have nothing to lose and you gain another formidable Akatsuki member. Nagato contemplated about it, although he wasn't very trusting with this other person in the room. His plan would need as much help as it can get. But still, there was something about this man that seemed a little off. How can we trust you? We don't even know who you are and yet you show up just to say that you want to be an Akatsuki. Oh, how silly of me, the masked figure chuckled as he put his hands on his mask. I haven't introduced myself yet, have I? The man tugged on his mask to release it from his face. When he did, he pulled the mask above his head and revealed his face with flaring Sharingan in both eyes. My name is Madara Uchiha. I was a former ninja of Konohagakure, but am no longer. I despise that place. Madara Uchiha, Nagato silently replied to himself. He has heard plenty of stories about this man and what he has done, but there was one problem. If my memory serves me correctly, Madara Uchiha should be long dead, but here he stands before me. How can he be alive when that generation has deceased long ago? Heh heh heh. Then you obviously do not know what I have done, Madara told the orange-haired corpse with a dark chuckle. You are highly underestimating the power of the Uchiha. Typical. The black-haired man then put his mask back on and quickly threw the robe's hoodie over his head. Just because you showed me who you were, that doesn't mean that I will trust you, Nagato retorted with a scowl. Konan didn't say anything but she seemed to be along the same train of thought as the orange-haired corpse. Well then, I believe I should prove my loyalty to you. Just let me join and I can help end those pathetic people's lives in Konoha as retribution for both of your parents' murder. How do you know about that? Nagato replied with haste and anger. The only people to have ever known about his childhood were Yahiko, Konan, Jiraiya, and Nagato himself. He never told a soul about his life as a child. Not even the Akatsuki members knew about it. The hooded man held a silent stare but replied, I have my ways. You will tell me. The orange-haired man retorted while trying to charge at the man while in Yahiko's corpse, are all. He lost his footing strength a quarter of the way there and kneeled to the ground, panting in pain. Nagato. The blue-haired woman ran up to her teammate to see if he was fine, but he bumped her off of him with his elbow. I'm fine, Konan, he panted while staring angrily at the man. You're in no shape to fight me right now and I would strongly advise against it, Madara replied while turning to head out of the door. Either way, I'll give you some time to think about it. If I were you though, I'd take the offer while it's on the table. It's not every day someone like me offers help for free. He turned his head one final time and flared his Sharingan through his eye hole in the mask. I'll be waiting. And with that, He disappeared down the hall with his footsteps reverberating from the walls until the only thing that could be heard was the slow panting of Yahiko's corpse. After they were sure Madara was gone, Konan tried to help her friend up, but was refused as he shook her hand off of his arm. Don't worry. I know you're worried about me, but I'm fine. She only looked in his direction in a concerned manner. Are you going to let him join us? I don't know, Nagato replied solemnly. If he can truly aid me, then I will have no choice but allow him into Akatsuki. Every person is vital. But you can't possibly trust that man, can you, Nagato? No, I don't, but the organization has to move forward, and that means the leader has to make hasty decisions. Another moment passed before Nagato said anything. Since I will be using this body, I have to use another name. A new name that people will fear when they hear it, Nagato replied while walking over to a table that held a folded fabric on the top. It was as if he didn't want to talk about Madara. After unfolding it, he began to put his arms into it and let the rest make its way to the floor. It was a black cloak with recently stitched red and white clouds. These clouds on our new cloaks will symbolize all of the bloodshed during the wars in Omegakure. Our group will bring true peace and no one will dare to surpass us, for we are Akatsuki. He then put on a rain Hittite that had a horizontal slash through the middle of the metal plate and tied it into a knot. Pain is the source of every war, every hatred, and every vengeance. That will be my new name, Pain. End flashback. Sigh. We were just looking for you. A pink-haired ninja yelled while running towards her teammate. He appeared to have short black hair and black ninja gear that revealed his lower abdomen. He noticed his teammates coming closer and decided to stop his pace. Naruto came up rather quickly. I wanted to ask you something. What is it? The pale boy asked curiously. We want to know more about Danzo, the kunoichi replied with anger tinted in her voice. The boy looked at his teammates skeptically before uttering a sound. I can't. That answer infuriated them. Was their friend hiding something about that man? Could they have really trusted someone who wouldn't even tell them the truth? What? Why not? Are you taking his side? The pink-haired ninja retorted with her orange-haired companion. No, it's not that. Sai felt a bit overwhelmed and threw his hands up in defense. I literally can't talk about him because of this. His mouth opened and revealed something that astounded the both of them. Seal? Sakura asked while gazing in concern. Onsai's tongue was a vertically running set of black rectangles through the middle of his tongue and 4 separated smaller rectangles branching from those near the end of his tongue. Yeah, Danzo puts it on all of the Foundation members, he said with a simple conviction, and if I try to talk about him, my whole body will become paralyzed and I'll be unable to move or talk. Sakura's face etched itself into worry. He's really cautious. Danzo and the Foundation are top secret, Sai replied in seriousness. We've done a lot of dirty deeds to protect the village. And so that no information gets out, he puts these seals on us that prevent us from talking. Not even the most trained interrogators can get us to break. But how can Danzo do that to his own men? I don't get it, Sakura said with interest. Sai looked over to her and responded, you may not like how he does things, but that is how he has protected Konoha all of these years. In his own way, he really cares about the village. Well, what about Sasuke? She yelled rather violently. He went back on Tsunade's promise about killing Sasuke and is now letting anyone get the chance to kill him. The astounded the black-haired boy, really? I didn't hear anything about that. CHK. A metallic sound dropped their reactions and caused them to gain a look at new entities approaching their right. Tell me everything you know about Sasuke, since he seems to be a friend of yours. A woman with a bandana Kumogakure headband wrapped around her dark red hair pointed her single-edged blade at Team 7 with a look that meant business. The blade gleamed with an impeccable sheen that meant she must have kept her sword clean at all times. Reacting on instinct, Naruto grabbed the closest thing he could find, which was Sai's small blade, and popped the Cloud Ninja's sword out of its stance with a swift strike, momentarily stunning the ninja. Without stopping his momentum, he tried to elbow the woman in the face but was interjected with the hilt of the other Cloud Ninja's blade. The woman quickly rolled her back on the other Cloud Ninja's back to do another attack. The man shouted a reminder about not hurting the leaf ninja and the woman reacted by twisting her blade backwards. But before she could do a hit on the opposing leaf nin, a shadow clone popped up in front of her blade, grasping it tightly and making sure it didn't go anywhere. Sakura rushed into the fight along with Sai as they both tried to counter with their teammate, but the male Kumo nin jump kicked the pink-haired team member, sending her skidding across the dirt. The orange-clad shadow clone ran over to help Sakura as she kept sliding and went to her aid. Bouncing off of her teammate, the Kumo Kunoichi elbowed Naruto in the neck, causing the Kawaramide shadow clone to dispel and reaching an impasse in the fight. "What are you doing?" Naruto said with anger while helping his pink-haired friend. After getting a better look at the enemies, everyone realized that they were Kumo ninja. "Kumogakure ninja, what are you doing here? You were talking about Sasuke." The male Kumo ninja said while pointing at the opposing team. "Tell us about him. What does he have to do with you?" The male Kumo ninja grew a vein in his temple and threw his index finger to the one asking. "He has everything to do with us. Uchiha Sasuke is the one who attacked our village. That missing ninja took our master and we don't even know if he is dead or alive." The red-headed Kumo female said while swinging her arm through the air. Sakura was confused. Why would Sasuke do something like that? How should we know what Akatsuki wants? Naruto's eyebrow raised slightly at hearing the word Akatsuki somehow being related to Sasuke. What? What do you mean Akatsuki? Are you serious? The redhead fired back. Sasuke is a member of Akatsuki. Naruto's heart sank after hearing that. Sasuke has really stooped so low as to join the group that is after him. Why was he doing these things? What could have made him possibly turn so bad? After contemplating for a little longer, he spoke again. "Are you sure it's really him?" "Yeah." They both responded while the redhead continued. "He was wearing the Uchiha crest and the description matched up with him too. Is he a host just like me?" Both Kumo ninja froze a tad and could only say one thing. "Yeah, but you're a Jinchuriki too." "Yes," Naruto replied with seriousness in his voice, "and Akatsuki is going after all of us. They need us alive so your master may still be alive and well." "What?" They both responded in shock. They obviously didn't know that the Akatsuki had certain plans that required the hosts to remain intact for a short amount of time. "Yeah," he replied while walking over to them, "you need to go and save your master before you go after Sasuke. And I'll tell you what, I'll also help you look for him and tell you everything I know about Akatsuki." "Good thinking, Carrot Top," the redhead responded while pointing her blade, "but don't forget to tell us about Sasuke." "Naruto," a concerned voice called from his left. "Don't worry Sakura-chan," the orange-haired Jinchuriki said, "leave everything to me." "Space break. This seems like a good place to me," a female voice replied while grabbing someone and throwing them onto a wall rather forcefully and pushing her arm into his throat, causing him to choke. "Now tell us everything about Sasuke." Naruto told his teammates that he would escort the Kumo ninja and tell them what they needed to know. Unfortunately, it was never Naruto's plan to tell them about Sasuke. He just wanted to get far enough away from his teammates so they wouldn't hear him and the other ninja doing business, because he had a good feeling that it would probably end up to that effect. He led them to a secluded building in the middle of the woods where they could talk in private. The red-headed ninja wasn't in the mood for games and she really wanted to get to the bottom of things. Her rendition of what happened was that Killer Bee was taken captive by Sasuke while Bee was momentarily away. It wasn't really a good thing since he was one of the last Jinchuriki that were still alive. There had to be further explanations as to where he could have gone and what the Akatsuki were doing with him, and she felt that Naruto maybe knew more than he was letting on, which was true in a way. "I can't," the orange-headed ninja responded while gazing to the ground, "I can't betray him." "What?" she growled as her teeth clenched shut. "You bastard, how can you say something like that now?" Naruto formed his hands into fists as he remembered the times when Sasuke was around and throughout the things Nagato and Minato told him. "I know it's selfish. But I can't sell him out." She further pushed her forearm into his throat, hoping it would increase her odds of revealing information. Bastard. Listen, Naruto choked. I understand that you want revenge, but if you let hatred run rampant and it kills Sasuke, then my friends might not let it go as easily as you can. His voice was becoming raspy, but it still held its determination. Then they will someday get their own revenge and it will keep going. Friends we were supposed to protect will end up killing each other. So, what should we do with our hatred? The blonde Kumo ninja replied as if it were the number one question, how are you going to make it up to us? The Jinchuriki sighed once as he thought about it. He knew this moment would come, but he didn't know just how soon it would. His only resolve to the situation was in his next words, hit me, as much as you want. That's all I can. Bam. The redhead's fist connected with his face, causing a multitude of cracking sounds and sounds of skin connecting with skin. The force of the punch was too great and made Naruto fall over just from the momentum that was injected throughout his body. That's a little too convenient, don't you think? You really think that it will work? Then let's try it then. Her fists came crashing down upon the Jinchuriki as he lay there, defenseless by his own will. His face and ribs were taking a total beating. Little did they know that they had someone secretly watching them in the shadows from a tree. Sai held out and came back to see if Naruto was really going to be okay, but it turned out that he was getting a beating and didn't look like it would stop anytime soon. He could feel anger building from inside of him the longer he saw his helpless teammate getting beaten to a bloody pulp. After another minute or so, the woman stopped momentarily to gain her breath. She was clearly tired, but she knew that she had to do what it took for Killer Bee to be safe. Naruto slowly regained his footing as he panted in distress, but still held the fire in his eye that wasn't swollen shut. I'm telling you, the redhead shouted again, no amount of me beating you to death will make me feel any better. I won't stop hitting you until you tell me about Sasuke. Her fist came for another swing and Sai took all he could take at this scene. Sai began to run. If you lay one more hand on Naruto-kun, I will kill you. Sai blinked momentarily as he stopped in his tracks. Another person intervened in the fight before the Team 7 member could react. The person had an orange flower wrapped into her hair, which was a faded light blue color, and her whole figure appeared to be encased in papers. Not only that, but the red-headed Kumo woman seemed to be connected by papers from her arm to the defender's arm by the defending paper technique, almost as if their arms were fused together. That wasn't the thing that made the air cold and stiff. No, it was the facial features that the leaf kunoichi etched onto her face that could literally kill someone if it were possible. Her amber eyes were half-lidded and held no mercy, which meant that she has seen more than any other could possibly imagine. Her mouth was formed into a razor-like frown as her papers scattered in the wind around her figure. Make one subtle move and I won't hesitate. You will fall where you stand. Naruto looked in front of him to see who stopped the punch and was all out surprised at who he found defending him. Konan-chan.